Okay, the time is 5 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Please stand with me for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for coming. At this time, we will go ahead and open the meeting up for public comment. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes and state your name and where you live for the record. Starting with people in the room, is there any public comment in the room?
Go ahead. Seth Murdoch, Columbia County. It seems the general consensus is that most people want to maintain a functional, operating, safe railroad. And I think the best way to do that would be through the incentive of private ownership. And since you have a buyer who's operated the railroad and operated other railroads profitably, I think it'd be a good idea to take him up on that. Because I see with government ownership, I think it could turn into another kind of a grant bonanza, where instead of focusing on the railroad, the job at hand, things could get out of hand. We could start focusing more on other projects, boondoggle projects, more trails instead of rails. So I think keep the railroad by selling the railroad. That's what I got.
Thank you. Anybody else with comment? Go ahead.
I know previously, I'm sorry, what's the engineer's name? I'm so bad with names. When he previously spoke with
your name, please?
Oh, sorry, Rebecca Gibson, Columbia County. Well, I live in Dave, but, he told us, we brought up like having like a dinner train, that type of thing, and he told us that the rails right now are in such bad condition that, people can't be transported over them, that, but he was willing to repair them if he owned the lines where something like that could happen. And that's a good revenue avenue that does bring in tourists, that isn't a tax burden to the community. That I think would be really a positive for our community. So I support selling the railway to somebody who has an opportunity to improve our community in a good way.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chuck Bellany. I live in Columbia County. And I was at the last meeting when they gave a long presentation on the railroads. And we need to keep the dams for one thing. We need to keep the railroad. But we need to keep the railroad in the best condition possible in case the dams do go away. And the port has had the railroad, and when Paul had his railroad engineer come and walk from Waitsburg to Dayton and do an assessment, he found that 1 out of basically every 3 rails needed to be replaced. And that this section was the worst section from Dayton to Waitsburg on the entire line. So the port has its hands in other things. I think what we need to do is we need to sell the railroad to Paul, to somebody whose main focus is railroads, so we can get it up to the standards so the trains can run faster and bear more weight. Because I had talked to the engineer who actually ran the train, and he has to limit the speed that they go because of the condition of the tracks for safety. And they also have to reduce the loads they can carry on it for safety. And the port has had a chance to improve. We are where we're at today. I think we need to sell it to Paul and have him improve the rail lines so that we can increase the speed, increase the loads it can carry in case the dams do happen to go away. And I don't think that if they start tearing the dams down, we're gonna have the complete infrastructure in place ahead of time where the farmers are gonna be able to get their things to market. And that's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So if I remember correctly, Dave Harvey, Dayton, Washington. The port, and I, excuse me for not knowing the exact dates, but the port has received grant money. I believe it was 2022, for improving the line. And the operator was supposed to improve the line, and he has withheld from doing that. I don't have the exact date, but there is money out there that's in the form of a grant that has been received by the port. And, all that needs to happen is the work. And I don't understand why the operator hasn't begun already working on a line. If he's truly interested in owning it, you think he would want to improve it. If I owned a house and had money to start improvements a year before I wanted to sell it, I'd start improving it. Thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Kevin Russ, Columbia County. I'm in favor of keeping the railroad. And I would hope that the commissioners have thought it through and exhausted, if we're going to sell it, if they've exhausted all means of having it turn a profit, or break even, because because once we sell it, it's gone, property is gone. Either way, I want to see a railroad that works in this county.
I'm Mitch Payne. I live in Dayton. I'm the former manager of Columbia County Grain Growers from 2002 to 2019. I think the port should maintain ownership of this asset. I don't think selling it to operators in the best interest for the ag community of both Columbia and Walla Walla counties. I think it's best managed with the port and the people that live in this county, not selling it to an outsider, especially one involved in transportation, although you might think that might be a good deal. I think shippers should own the line.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, anybody on Zoom with a public comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll go into our regular agenda items, beginning with administrative items. First thing on the list is the election of officers. In January of odd numbered years, we elect our officers of chair and secretary, and January is not an odd year, so let's go ahead and do that.
I have a comment. I've been involved in other commissions and stuff. And in other commissions, the chair rotates, whether it's 2 years or 1 year, by seniority. So you've been chair, so it would then go to Johnny Watts if he wanted it. And then 2 years or a year later, it'd go to me and then go back to you. And it rotates instead of being an election. It's kind of raise your hand if you're willing to do it, if you're next in line. It's just a suggestion. I don't know that we have any rules written that it has to be an election,
It's in our policies that we elect officers.
which we can change if we wanted to.
We could change, but.
Okay.
I think it's, oh, sorry, if I may recite the RCW, it says. Well, I guess this doesn't, quote the RCW, but there is an RCW 53.12.245. That says the port shall elect a president and secretary from its own members in January of each odd numbered. I think we chose the odd numbered calendar year. I don't remember. But so there is an RCW that says we have to elect officers.
Okay,
Doesn't mean they can't be rotated, but
Sure.
there is an RCW.
well.
Yeah.
So I would move that Johnny Watts be our next chair.
Okay, well,
Can you hear, John?
Johnny, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Commissioner Spring has nominated you to be our next chair. Is that something that you'd be interested in doing?
Yeah, I'm interested in just like when I ran for office, doing what needs to be done for the port. So interested in the chair? Yeah, absolutely. I'm interested in any position that I can best be suited. The problem that I have is my work schedule. Sometimes stuff comes up where I am taken out of town on a moment's notice. And I think it's critical that the chair is absolutely there in the seat. I'm not saying that I can forecast it. That's the problem, is I can't forecast it. Would I be willing to take the job? Absolutely, if I was elected to be so. But I have a caveat that my job takes me away from Columbia County from time to time, and sometimes I don't have a choice or have a lot of notice.
Okay, well, I am happy to remain in the chair position. So I guess it's between you and me, Johnny, so we'll just go ahead and vote on it. So those in favor of Commissioner Watts for chair,
Aye.
those in favor of Commissioner Bryan for chair? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so I will remain chair at this time. So now we will elect a secretary.
So just for the record, there was. I missed there being a motion and a second. Was it
Is there
ever
a
a
motion
motion?
and second, or is it done by, how is that done by, with an election?
Says all proceeding, I found the RCW, the Port Commission shall organize by the election of its own members of a president and secretary. Shall by resolution adopt rules governing the transaction of its business and shall adopt an official seal. All proceedings of the Port Commission shall be by motion or resolution recorded in a book or books kept for such purpose, which shall be public records.
Okay, so then we will need a motion to make that official.
Make a motion to elect Johnny Watts.
Now, wouldn't that be contrary to the way the vote just went, though?
I didn't vote for you, I voted for Johnny Watts,
But there is. Okay, so,
I'm just making the motion.
okay, so we have a motion for Johnny Watts for chair. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we didn't get a second either. So
Yeah, that's the other thing. So,
so if there's no second, then the motion dies.
yeah,
Okay,
You don't vote, it
Right.
just dies.
right. So we have a motion. Do we have a second for Commissioner Watts for chair? No, we don't. So do we have a motion for Seth Bryan for chair?
I make a motion to maintain the officers as they currently are.
I would second that. Those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Did you vote, Johnny?
Yeah, I did. I said, maintain them in the event that, Mr. Spring still wants to be secretary.
I would be secretary. If the motion carries.
Okay,
So you made let's see,
so you made the motion, Johnny, so now we gotta vote on that.
Yep.
Those in favor, say aye.
I
you
said,
need to vote.
I said aye.
Okay, got it. All right.
Wow.
Positions. I love technology. Positions will remain unchanged for this year. Okay, moving on to approving minutes. Have the commissioners had an opportunity to review last month's minutes for December? If there's no questions or concerns about last month's minutes, I would accept a motion to accept the minutes as written.
So move.
Second,
Motion and second to approve December 18th minutes as written. Those in favor respond by saying aye.
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 all right.
Okay, minutes are approved. Our monthly budget report and vouchers now. Is there any vouchers we need to?
Nothing too extraordinary. If you look on the voucher list, there was, we had to replace a sewer pump at Dayton Tractor. We had the grading and graveling done by Barker. They've come a couple of times, it's better. Department of Commerce, the $10,000 is our annual sewer payment for connecting to the city sewer at Blue Mountain Station. Gary Engelmeyer is the, because there were two different consultants for the rail appraisal, so that is the, real estate portion. And then finally, Blue Mountain Telecom, that is the retainage from the broadband project. We are still waiting for a release from there are 3 public agencies that have to release retainage. We've gotten the release from 2, we're waiting for 1 more, but we know it would be, by law, they have to do it like within the next 2 weeks. So we went ahead and cut the check. We'll just hold it till we get that release.
All right.
Those are the only things, vouchers of large or interesting dollar amounts.
Okay.
But I'm happy to answer any other questions. And then I did want to talk about the attorney letter. I
Yes.
sent that late. So our previous arrangement for legal services was quite favorable to the Port of Columbia. $3,000 a year retainer with no hourly charges. So the new offer is a $6,000 a year retainer plus $250 an hour for services, which would include their attendance at port meetings. So we would pay that by the hour. Now, this year I did budget more than usual because I anticipated the potential for more services. And so I did budget 15,000. So this would, if we, let's say she came to every meeting and it was 2 hours a meeting, which normally it isn't, that would be another $6,000 a year. So that'd be about 12,000, not including other contract costs and others. So it would fit within the budget. So, and apparently our former good deal is no longer optional. So. But thank you for the many, many years of really sweet legal prices. We appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So I don't know if,
It's within
maybe you
our
wanna-
budget, right?
it's within our budget, so I don't know if they need to take action. I guess this could be her first official, whether or not they need to really take action, so.
Do we need to make
It's
a motion to?
No, you can acknowledge and accept the offer.
Yeah,
I would like to acknowledge and accept the offer.
I would second that. That sounds reasonable to me.
Yeah,
okay.
thank you.
Okay.
Okay, are there any questions from the commissioners on the voucher sheet or the budget report?
No.
No,
Oh,
Okay, our signature will be the approval of that.
it's me or, oh, it's all of us.
it's all of you.
Can I hold it up screen, Johnny?
Yeah, when I get back into town, I'll come see you, sign that.
Sounds good.
Okay, do we have any leases this month?
None this month?
No leases. Then we'll move on to our 2025 policy changes.
Okay, so I sent you all of this stuff ahead of time.
Mhm.
The only, two policies with changes are number 1 and number 15 that we are proposing. Of course, you have the, you can always suggest other changes if you saw any. So the personnel policy, the state has changed, the state has changed the law regarding the minimum you can pay an exempt salaried position. It's gone up quite a bit. It's 69,305 now for small agencies, 77 for larger agencies. Trust me, there are a lot of nonprofits that struggle with that, but that required us to definitely change the pay range in the personnel policy. So that was the first one. And then the second one, the health insurance premiums increased quite a bit this year, so I'm recommending we increase the portion the port pays by just $50 per month
Right.
per employee.
Okay.
And then Because if we don't, then they're, it's like any COLA or any other increases they get are just eaten up by the healthcare. And then page 9, remove ambiguous language about the Washington Cares Fund now that the law is settled. So those are just basics.
Okay.
And then the small and attractive assets policy, we had a discussion a year ago about those policies and the inventory that was done and how they were managed. And so Tracy has changed the policies, as you can see, where we have a condition listing now and a date when the eyes were last put on that item.
Okay.
So Tracy did that for all of the
Looks good.
Blue Mountain Station, Rock Hill Industrial Park, and Lions Ferry Marina. So those are included, and so if you approve the packet of policies, basically you're acknowledging that we've gone through all those items. And then finally, the records retention policy, it was in pretty rough shape. The reason this even came up is because I'll talk to you later about applying to BEAD for funding for more broadband work.
Okay.
And it's federal funds, and this is one of the policies that is on their list that you have to be required to have, which we already did, but it just hadn't been updated in a really long time. So I went through it, and as you can see, I changed it substantially.
Yes.
One of the things that's changed about it is that they seem to update and amend and update the what is it called? They call it code of, I can't remember the core. They called it core. So it's like the schedule of public records. The state has a committee that's actually updating it on a fairly regular basis. So putting those dates in our policy really doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right.
So instead, I have referred to that page, that online page where you can find the records retention rules. And then we also had rules for accessing public records on our website, but they weren't a policy. They were just a list on our website. So instead, now I have folded it into this policy. So you'll adopt it every year. Review it and adopt it every year so that it's actual policy. So those are the recommended changes for this year.
Okay.
So I'm happy to answer any questions or entertain other changes you guys might want to suggest.
I don't have any suggestions for additional changes. I thought the revisions that you made look good. Yeah, I think it was fine.
We need a motion to approve.
Actually, you will need a motion we readopt all of our policies each year, so you would be making a motion to adopt policies 1 through 18, which would include these that have been amended.
I'll make a
Yeah.
motion that we adopt policies 1 through 18.
So we have a motion to adopt policies 1 through 18, which would include these revisions and changes that we just discussed. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I second it, if you can hear me.
We can hear you.
We got you, Donnie.
I've been going in and out like crazy, so I'm trying.
All right. Well, we have a motion and a second to approve policies 1 through 18, including the revisions and changes as discussed. Those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, policies are adopted.
And now the delegation of authority is separate. That is a resolution. Okay. And that I made no changes, but it just needs to be readopted.
So the delegation of authority resolution, we have to do this every year and it is unchanged from last year. So unless you commissioners have questions or changes that you would like to suggest to this, then we need to adopt resolution number 2025-01. Which is a resolution of the Port of Columbia Board of Commissioners delegating administrative powers and duties to the Executive Director of the Port of Columbia and his or her designees and repealing all prior resolutions dealing with the same subject matter.
I would make a motion to adopt resolution 2025-1.
I will second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 2025-01. Is there any further discussion?
Nope.
No, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
I,
Aye. Delegation of authority resolution has passed. Okay, we'll talk about update on port assets now, beginning with Rock Hill Industrial Park.
We did the gravel work. It was pretty quiet during the holidays, very quiet. So I don't really think we had any other activity in the park, did we, Tracy? No, tenants are all the same, no changes.
Okay. Lionsbury Marina.
So I worked with the new concessionaires on the annual management plan, part one. So we got that completed and turned in to the Corps of Engineers. I also had an opportunity to speak with Senator Schessler today at our economic development meeting, or yesterday, I guess that was, about our RCO funding for the pull-throughs. And he said that there is a possibility that the legislature could authorize more money that would enable our project to be funded. So it's not certainly no guarantee, but
Right.
he is the chair, I believe, of the capital budget process, so it's a good thing.
Okay.
So, I think probably, I think it's a session goes through April, so we'd probably know sometime through April whether or not
Right.
there's enough funds. So
Okay.
I thought that was good news.
That's good news.
Yeah.
And Blue Mountain Station.
Nothing really to report. We're waiting on a contract from Curve. We can't start the architecture and engineering work until we get the contract done.
Okay.
Everything's been turned in.
Right.
So I'm assuming the holidays caused slowness,
Yeah.
but so, and we're
Okay.
still working with the pasta company. Even though we didn't get the funding for that equipment, we're still talking to them about potentially moving here, so. I think that's it.
All right, brings us to CWW Railroad and the road sale regarding next steps.
Yeah, could we talk about, I forgot to put the grant on there. Could I talk about that real quick
Sure,
first?
yes.
Okay, so, I still have not, as Dave was referring to, I've not heard anything about the grant that was gonna replace ties and ballast between Dayton and Waitsburg. But the section 130 grant that I was part of, we had a site visit in December and with the DOT, the UTC, and the Columbia Rail and the adjacent landowner, which was good. And so that's all done. They've got a plan. The state had some ideas of changing, this is about the signal and the crossing, changing the signal. And so the state had some ideas for how to improve the signaling. So I filled out a program summary and a diagnostic report and have submitted them to the state. So now they'll go through some of their gyrations. And Columbia Rail said they don't want to do the work until September of 26.
Okay.
So it's nothing that's going to happen right away,
Right.
but it is federal funds. So again, we would have to go through the auditing process, but that's 1.69 million for that improvement.
Okay,
I just wanted to update you on that.
thank you. So as far as the sale and next steps, I believe that with the decision of this magnitude, we need to give it some dedicated time that we won't really have in a, regular scheduled meeting because we have other business to attend to. I think it would be appropriate, in the interest of transparency and openness to hold a special meeting to where we could hear from the public and the commission could talk about this, and that would be the only thing on the agenda for that night would be a discussion of the railroad and what we need to do from here on. But I don't believe that there is adequate time in our regular meetings.
well, I would suggest a different venue also. We could get
Yeah,
more
I think it'd be a little crowded in
15
here.
people.
Yeah.
What are the requirements for notification of a special meeting?
It's minor, it's only 24 hours notice, but that's not the right thing to do in this
Right, no.
situation.
No.
So, it would need, I would say, a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Advertising.
So, why don't we see if we can come up with a date that works for the commissioners in a couple of weeks?
Okay.
2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks tops, that works for everybody, that we could discuss this before our next regular meeting. My schedule's pretty much wide open. Wednesdays work really well for me.
So are you saying you want to hold the special meeting before our next meeting?
Yeah, and in 2 to 3 weeks, I would think. I think that would give adequate notice and time for everybody to hear about it and see it in the papers.
I would like to see us invite the grain growers, Cenex, but I'd also like to have Burlington Northern and the other.
UP?
I keep wanting to call it something else. Just whether they come or not,
Right.
at least invite them. And it might be too quick within a month to get invitees. It'd be good to at least have a representative from the county and city and if they can come. I mean, all you do.
Well, what the purpose of this meeting is to hear from the community members and to have the community have a chance to, you know, voice their thoughts, concerns if they have any. It's not going to be a question and answer session. It's going to be a business meeting between the commission. I'm happy to invite anybody that we want to that would like to make a public comment.
So you just want a public comment, not an informational and then public comment.
The purpose of the public comment period in our meetings is to hear from the public and hear what they have to say and whatnot. It's not necessary to have a back and forth dialogue, per se.
Right, with our public. I'm just saying the facts.
Do you want a presentation of any kind? I think
what
that's
I'm
what he's saying.
Some sort of presentation that.
Commissioner Brown.
Go ahead, Johnny.
So one of the things is I would like to do or is thinking about it and find it appropriate is I'd like to have a workshop of railroad workshop, gather the information that we've already gathered, and make some one pagers, some informational, have the commissioners talk about it. Now, I don't know if that's more appropriate after a public comment or because there's still questions and information that we got to sit and talk about and see what options are and those type of things. So I'd like to have a workshop, whether it's after a public, but I would like to get together just as a workshop on it, to have those conversations, talk about what we heard, see whatever the commissioners' thoughts are on that, where and then what options we.
Lost him.
Darn.
I think we got the gist of what he was suggesting. Is
All
that
right, I'm back, sorry. Anyways, that's what I would like to do. So, and then absolutely, this is a big ticket item. This is a big impact for the community. So community's involvement is going to be critical on it. We just haven't had to sit down and had a conversation to talk about the information that we've been receiving over the last 6 months of doing the research. So that's just my request.
Okay. I like that idea. I think that'd be a good time for us to have a back and forth dialogue with
Should we do it
the
before?
people you suggested.
Before or after the public comment?
Let's go ahead and let's do the
Before.
workshop before.
Yeah.
Okay, so workshop first and then public
Right.
comment.
Right.
Okay. That sounds good to me.
Okay, so I would need some time to invite people, and you said Wednesdays. Would it be terrible to push it to February 5th? Would still be before our next meeting, but that would give me 1, 2, 3. Oh, that gives me almost a month. I guess we could do it the 29th either to also 29th or 5th.
Let's shoot for the 29th.
Are we
Or
talking about a workshop first
Yeah.
or?
Workshop.
workshop first, yes.
Yeah. It's probably not a lot of, we can let people know, but it's really kind of an intimate commissioners meeting. Yes, we'll have this conversation. I don't know if there's going to be, would be a lot of people there because then that clogs up what our conversation may be. But just ideas.
It will have to be an open
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah, it has to be an
I
open
realize-
meeting, but you don't have to take public comment. I
Right.
think what he meant was if we wanted to invite the grain growers or experts to talk to, I guess. I don't know.
I think the invitation to the experts we're referring to would be appropriate at our workshop. That way
Okay.
we can, have dialogue with them and
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
if we shoot for the 29th, that gives us, 3 weeks.
We can certainly shoot for it and I'm
Yeah.
open that. Johnny, are you open on the 29th?
I will have to, I do not have my, my other apparatus to check that at this
Okay.
second, so I'll have to do that.
Will you do me a favor and check both the 29th and February 5th, just so we have an alternative?
Yep,
Okay, so let's go ahead and shoot for the 29th on that, unless there's a conflict with Commissioner Watts, and then we can have a alternate fallback date of the 5th.
Sounds good.
Okay. So that will be our next step with the railroad. Any other discussion you had, Jenny? about the railroad?
I don't know. Oh, wait, yes, one. I did, speak to the appraisers.
Mhm.
And they, I asked them if they would, if we needed consulting services moving forward, what that would look like. So they have agreed that they've sent me a proposal. I haven't signed it or anything yet, but that if we wanted to, we could just pay, if we needed assistance, we could just pay them by the hour
Okay,
and because they have a lot of knowledge
Right.
about how a sale might be structured or, different aspects of the appraisal and all that stuff, so.
and would you please make sure that Paul DeDelius is on that invite list for our workshop?
Sure. Of course.
Okay, broadband. Any updates?
Oh, hang on just a minute. Okay, let's see, project updates, still, like I told you, we're still waiting on release of retainage for Tushy Valley Broadband. We are getting ready to install some new fiber lines for the county between the new building they bought on Main Street and their existing properties. And we're exploring the cost of extending to some new construction spots in town. It's just small, but it would make sense rather than the ISP trying to build a little piece in the middle of our giant network that we take care of that. So I'm still waiting for a price on that one. The new fibers for the county will cover the costs. It's just a pass through, so. And then I wanted to talk about BEAD tonight. So we've been talking about that for months.
Right.
And what Petrichor has come up with is that probably need to go ahead and apply in round one, even though we know that the full fiber build out will cost more money than the funding agency has to provide. But if you are not part of round one, because there are going to be several rounds of funding, then it will be more difficult to try to negotiate with the NTIA regarding building a system that would actually be more of a hybrid system, which we could potentially afford. So they feel like it's important to go ahead and apply, and Petrichor has received funding from the state to help our different agencies do it, so it doesn't cost us anything to apply. But there is a cost to the, you have to have engineered stamp drawings for the application. That costs about $30,000. If you recall, a few months ago, I told you we had received a grant from the Washington Association of Counties. And that money is about 33,000, so the purpose of that money is to help pay for the engineered drawings. I do need to get a letter of support from the county engineers for that grant, or from the county commissioners. So Jill and I are on the agenda to go to one of their future meetings and get that letter of support. I also have to have a letter of support for the BEAD application, so I'll be asking them for that at the same time. It would serve 967 premises approximately, and it would be $74 million.
Wow.
That's why it's probably not gonna happen. But we have to, in order to be in the discussion, we have to apply. The other difficult thing to, the feds are requiring is a letter of credit from a bank. And ports don't really get letters of credit. However, they have been working with another broadband company in the Spokane area, or a consortium that's trying to help extend broadband. And US Bank and Spokane County have agreed to underwrite these I don't know what the word is. Spokane County has agreed to be a backer for US Bank to provide letters of credit to our small counties. So Petricor's figured out how to get it done. So we will just have to sign an interlocal agreement with Spokane County for that letter of credit. And this is all due January 31st at midnight.
Just a couple days from now.
So, but they've been very helpful in, of course, laying out what information they need from us. So Tracy and Jill have been helping me. We've been working on it. And I don't see any reason why we won't be ready. So
Thank you.
there you go.
All right, thank you.
Good luck on getting it all done.
Yeah.
Moving on to community and economic development, beginning with staff reports.
Okay, well, since the last meeting, I've been interviewed by the RCO and a consultant who are doing an joint study on the effect of on recreation if the Snake River dams were removed, which I was grateful to be included because of the marina. I've been pushing them to include us. And that is a study that's paid for by the RCO and the Corps of Engineers. I'm continuing worked with Kim on the sewer agreement for use of the railroad right of way with the city. And I plan to have that final agreement ready for you to approve at the February meeting.
Okay.
City is really anxious to get that finished, especially considering the discussion of selling the right of way. It's making them concerned. I attended the Association of Washington Business Legislative Preview today that, you know, they've talked a lot about there being a deficit, but Senator Schessler and this group, you know, there's room to cut for cuts, you know, it's not that we have a revenue reduction, we have a spending increase. So they seem to feel like they'll be able to work through it. I attended the key communicators meeting at the school today and things seem to be going very well there. It's kind of really good to see. I think the new superintendent is doing a good job and continuing the good work that Rich had done, and they're seeing real great turnout at the sporting events and good enrollment and not, seeing the loss of students that they've had. So it seems to be going really well. And then regarding the TV, we did call the tech guy that helps us often. And Tracy, the room rearrangement was Tracy's idea. So what do you guys think of that? I know you're sitting closer together, but it seems to work out okay.
Fine.
It certainly makes more room out there. And so then the idea would be to maybe have two screens, maybe one over here and one over there.
Mhm.
So that the audience and the commission could see and have them be bigger. But we need to make sure they're networked so that whatever we're plugging in shows up simultaneously on both screens. So we're working on it.
Okay.
I think that's all I have. I will let Jill report. Jill had lots of vacation during the holiday and then was sick, so.
Yes, I did. Unfortunately, got the flu within my vacation and like 4 days in bed. Back.
Happy vacation.
I know, right? Just a couple things. We have some upcoming workshops this month. So, next week, the 16th, 12 p.m. here will be on cybersecurity. And then the 28th at 5 p.m. again here on financial analysis, and forecasting. Worked with Whitman University and some of their students to get a first draft of a recreation map for our county. Working with them, they sent a first draft over, there's some changes, so we got to send it back. And then I got to tour Moon Family Farm, their farm out of Prosser, Washington. I got to tour their farm to understand more about their grain storage, because they're a little bit smaller scale, understand kind of what their needs are in their model, because they are commodity farming, but also doing some other things too. So that's sort of interesting. And as we move forward with the grain cluster, it could be something that might work for our farmers here, where they're not completely stepping away from commodity, but maybe accessing some new markets with the grain cluster. And that's all I got.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to you, Commissioner Spring, for the Development Task Force.
The Development Task Force last meeting was the SEDS meeting
Right.
over
Hello?
at the county fairgrounds. And so we haven't had a meeting.
Okay,
So that's my report. I'll give you one next month.
all right. Well, that's the end of our agenda items. That brings us to our final public comment period. If there's any public comment at this time, please limit it to 1 minute per person. Same rules apply. State your name and where you live. Anybody in the room? Nobody? Anybody on Zoom? Nobody. Do the commissioners have any final remarks?
No, I'm glad to see that we're doing a public hearing and a workshop over the railroad. I think we as a commission have to come together.
Sorry, it was a relative dropping some papers off to me.
No
It's like,
Okay, well, if there's nothing further from the commission or staff, then we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Meeting's adjourned at 5:46.
nice.
Record time.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Be safe.
Oh, yeah.
Good to see you. Oh, hey, man. How you doing?
Well,